today's video, and in today's video, I'll be doing a 2024 election prediction between Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney. I'm gonna get started by labeling all of Harris's safe states. By the way, I'm doing Cheney because of what recently happened, where House Republicans essentially took her out of her leadership positions. Colorado's gonna be safe. Cheney's not gonna be able to do well enough in the suburbs. I think she's one of the better Republicans in the suburbs. But they're gonna continue to shift to the left, and it's gonna continue to not only shift the nation to the left, but it's going to make it much more difficult for a Republican to win a state like Colorado, or to even lose a state like Colorado by a fairly decent marginal loss. Like, don't do terribly. She's also not going to be able to do very well with the Hispanic and Latino vote. For Harris's likely states, New Mexico, Maine at large, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and that is it. So in New Mexico, Cheney's not gonna be able to get enough support from oil workers. There's gonna be very little turnout from oil workers, because they're honestly both really bad for him. But Harris is also going to do better with the Hispanic and Latino vote. Minnesota, Cheney is not going to be able to do very well in Minneapolis, and this is a theme that we're going to see across the Rust Belt. There's going to be very little working class turnout, but we're going to see pretty average turnout from a lot of these bigger cities, which will give them larger vote shares. There's going to be less turnout from the working class and significantly less rural turnout. We might see some anti-Harris rural turnout. But, I mean, Cheney's just not going to be able to get enough turnout from the working class and from rural voters, and we're going to see, as a result, we're going to see a lot of these big cities have larger shares of the electorate, which will favor Harris, and she's probably going to win these by pretty large margin of victory just because of the weird turnout dynamic. In Virginia, Cheney is probably decent in these DC suburbs, but it won't be enough. She's also going to be really bad with the rural vote. Maine at large, pretty inelastic. I don't see much happening. For Cheney's likely states, Kansas, Missouri, Indiana, South Carolina, Alaska, and Nebraska's first. She's not going to do well enough for the rural vote in the suburbs. They're going to continue to shift it to the left. Kansas, she's going to get hardly any rural turnout in the Kansas City suburbs, and the Wichita area are going to continue to shift to the left. Missouri, a lot like in the Rust Belt, we're likely going to see a larger vote share from St. Louis and Kansas City, because we're going to see significantly less rural turnout. Indiana, a lot like the rest of the Rust Belt, we're not going to be able to see Cheney get enough turnout from the working class, and we're going to see, as a result, like Indianapolis and Gary and all these other cities having larger vote shares. South Carolina, Cheney's not going to be able to get enough white rural turnout, and she's not going to be able to do very well with the black vote. We could very easily see this go to Cheney by only like 7%. And in Alaska, Cheney's not going to be able to do well enough. Or we're going to see more and more Native American voters turn out, which will not favor Cheney, but she's going to do really poorly with oil workers. And yeah, for Harris's lean states, Nevada, Michigan, what did I say? Michigan, New Hampshire, and Georgia. While Liz Cheney gets Arizona. Harris gets Nebraska's second. Iowa, Ohio, and Florida, and I'm considering putting Texas in lean. It could be Till, but I'll just throw it in as lean. Arizona, Cheney's going to do very, very well with the traditional conservative vote in the suburbs that essentially lost Trump in the state. Like, not only that, but that was a pretty big factor. And I see Cheney doing better with that vote, especially against Kamala Harris, someone who's not a moderate like Kelly, or Biden, or who's not a neolib like Kirsten Sinema. I'm gonna do Texas last of these. For Iowa, I mean, like, I don't see Cheney getting enough white rural turnout from Trump voters, but I also don't see Harris doing well enough with Obama to Trump voters. So as a result, we're just going to see significantly less turnout, but it is clearly a Republican-leaning state. So I see it being like lead to Cheney by like 2 or 3%. Ohio, she's not going to get enough strength from the working class. Cheney, that is, and she's not going to get enough rural turnout, and we're likely going to see more vote share from a lot of these bigger cities. But the rural turnout will likely be against Cheney, and it is, I think at this point right now, it's a pretty conservative area. I don't necessarily see it I don't see it voting for somebody like Harris unless she runs against a really, really bad Republican candidate, like even worse than Liz Cheney. Just because Harris, it would have to be like against Marjorie Taylor Greene for her to actually to win the state of Ohio. In Florida, it's a pretty moderate state. I mean, like I see sorry, I just bumped my mic. I see Cheney doing well enough or decent enough with the older white vote, and decent enough in the suburbs. I see Harris though probably doing better with the Hispanic and Latino vote. Texas was a really close call between Tilt and Lean, because first off, we're gonna see that a lot of these suburbs, they're very, very red suburbs, continue to shift to the left. We're not gonna see Cheney get hardly any rural turnout, and we're gonna see Harris likely do significantly better with the Hispanic and Latino vote, which is probably why Cheney's only gonna win it by like 1%. It's gonna be a narrow, narrow margin of victory for her. For Harris's lean states, Nevada, Cheney's not gonna be able to get nearly enough white rural turnout, and she's not gonna do well enough with the Hispanic and Latino vote. Nebraska's second. She's gonna do slightly better, or she's a slightly better suburban candidate than Trump. It'll probably still be like D+5. But I just think generally the suburbs are gonna continue to shift to the left. But Cheney is a better Republican in the suburbs, but still not exactly amazing, because most Republicans nowadays most Republicans are pretty weak suburban candidates. And in Georgia, Cheney is not going to get anywhere near the rural turnout that she needs. She's not going to do very well in Atlanta or in its suburbs, and it's going to cost her the state. She's probably going to lose it by like 2 or 3%. New Hampshire, I just don't think that Harris is amazing with the white rural vote, and I think that like the white rural vote, or I would assume the rural vote. A lot of New Hampshire seems to be pretty rural, but like Democrats win the white vote in New Hampshire because most of New Hampshire is white. I mean, like it's a very white. It's a very, very white state. I mean, like a lot of the Northeast, like it's amazing that Vermont is like Biden won it by like 30 plus or something, but it has a very large white population. It's very weird that for whatever reason in like New England, the white vote just happens to be very liberal as opposed to in the rest of the nation. But I think that over here generally a lot of the or a lot of the white rural vote nationally not turning out would be like anti-Cheney not turning out, but here a lot of them I don't think would be anti-Cheney. I mean, like a lot of them are pretty liberal. I think that we could see some of them vote against Harris. Probably bringing it down to a more narrow margin of victory. By the way, Maine second. It's kind of hard to determine. I think it's gonna narrowly go to Cheney. I don't know. It's really hard. It's become a really weird area, but I just think at this point it's pretty conservative, and I don't see Harris doing well enough with Biden or Obama to Trump voters. I don't see Cheney doing very well with them either. It's probably like R+1 or R+2. And for the final state, North Carolina, I have it tilt going to Harris. Cheney's just not going to get the rural turnout needed. She's not going to get the turnout with the working class. But they're both really bad working class candidates. None of them are going to get the working class. Sorry, that probably sounded really awful. My mic just fell. They're not going to get the working class support that either of them are going to need. To be able, obviously, or not need, but they're not going to be able to get a lot of working class turnout. But Harris is going to do better in Charlotte and Raleigh and a lot of these cities and their suburbs as they continue to shift to the left. They're going to get larger vote shares, which will give Harris a narrow margin of victory there. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video tomorrow. Please comment your suggestions down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.